Hey guys, Retired at 40. I'm going on a little road trip today, just me and Murph. And last week, I reached a milestone on my channel and I hit 1 million views total and 10,000 subscribers in the same week. Since I've been getting requests for quite a long time about how I retired at 40 and I'm on a long road trip right now, I figured what better time to share the story. So without further ado, here's the Retired at 40 story. So before I get started, I want to say that this is not in any way a brag story. In fact, I'm definitely not a showy type guy. I enjoy very simple things in life, and money to me is more of just a vehicle to be able to retire young and have my family live a comfortable and an easy life, and to be able to enjoy lots of life experiences and be comfortable in life before I'm old and gray. So really the journey began in about 2002. I graduated from Iowa State University with a degree in marketing and business. And by that point, I had met my wife, Kelly. She had already graduated from school, and she was kind of waiting for me, and we wanted to move west out of the Midwest. To move west, see some new territory, and get closer to the outdoors. So I grabbed my degree, ran out the door, packed up my 1987 Ranger, fully equipped with 8-foot hay racks full of all of my personal belongings, and we drove to Littleton, Colorado. And at this point in my life, I had $200 in my pocket, and Kelly had about the same. So being completely naive and basically completely broke, but with a degree, I was on the search for the best suit and tie job that I could possibly find. So I bounced around for a couple months, just working some kind of halfway jobs. And I quickly realized that I did not want to wear a suit and tie, and I wanted nothing to do with the man and working a 9-to-5 job. So Kelly had found a job in a real estate office working in the front desk, and she had become friends with a couple of the big-time realtors there, one of which who caught wind that I had some handyman type skills. So he made me a deal that if he paid cash for a house and I fixed it up, that he would split the profit with us 50-50. And at this point in my life, all I saw was dollar sign. If I was completely blown away that there was someone that could pay cash for a house. This is coming from a guy who had less than $200 in his pocket at this point and was pretty much scraping by. I tried to hold back my excitement to him, but naturally I said, yes, please, let's do that. I was working the graveyard shift at Target stocking shelves. I'd work for 10 hours. I would go home, grab a little bit of breakfast, and I'd head over to the property and work on it for another 5 or 6 hours. I'd try and catch a few hours of sleep, and then I would rinse and repeat. It was at this point in my life that I learned a few different things. One, you really have to dig deep to reach your goals in life, because I was not getting paid by the hour, and at this point I didn't know how much money I was going to make. I didn't know if I would make $500 when this was all done, or if I was going to make $5,000 when this is all done. So I learned that a lot of things that can benefit you financially, you have to put in the work up front without knowing what your final outcome is going to be. After about 3 months, which seemed like an eternity of working 7 days a week for sometimes 15, sometimes 20 hours a day on this house, the house was ready to go on the market, and it was all finished, it looked great, and then before you knew it, it sold. And then the house closed. And at this point I still didn't know what we were gonna make off of it. But for me it didn't matter. The hard part was done. I didn't have any of my own money into it. I just had my time basically. So the guy we were doing the investment with hands me an envelope. And I open it up and it's $8,000. And being 22 years old and having $8,000, I might as well have hit the lottery. And that brings me to my second valuable lesson that I learned, and that is being responsible with money. So when you have $8,000 and you're 22 years old, a lot of people would go buy a new car, they'd go buy some flashy things, some pretty things. But to me, I had realized that if I can make $8,000 once, I can make $8,000 again and again and again and again. So I can either go $8,000 away that I had worked my ass off for, or I can take that $8,000 and do exactly what he did, but do it myself and potentially make twice or 3 times as much money. So my wife being in a real estate office, we became acquainted with quite a few smart people, financially smart people. We learned a lot about real estate very quickly because we were willing to learn, which is my next valuable life lesson, is that you never stop learning. So we took our $8,000, we put a small down payment on a condo in Littleton because we realized that giving someone else our money was, you might as well be throwing it away. We wanted to be working towards something and own something on our own. So we took our other $4,000 or $5,000 and we started our search for a real estate investment that we could do all on our own and get 100% of the profits. So after some searching, we did find a place. We found a small townhome. It was not in as nice of area as we were living. It was smaller. It needed lots of work. But that takes us to our next life lesson that we learned, and that is to sacrifice for a greater payoff in the future. So we had only lived in our condo for a very short time, but we realized that if we moved into the real estate investment, that we could rent out the place that we were living at and move into the place that we were fixing up that we'd have to be paying a mortgage on anyway. We had our first real estate investment and we had our first rental. So being 22 years old and owning 2 properties and carrying 2 mortgages, and at this point I'm still working at Target, was a pretty scary proposition in life. But all I could see was that $8,000 check that had started to change our lives. I also want to point out and kind of give a shout out to my parents and to my wife's parents, because neither one of our parents ever handed us anything in life. They always made us work for what we achieved. In fact, when we moved, we tried to convince my parents to co-sign on our mortgage for the condo that we bought, and they said no way. At the time, I was very, very mad at them, and I thought I would never forgive them. But in hindsight, it was one of the best things that they've ever done for me, because it just made me have that fire in my belly and really just want to work to get what I wanted. So back to having 2 mortgages. That was a completely scary thing in my life. I was making something like $10 an hour at Target. I think Kelly was making $13 an hour at the real estate office she was working at. We could barely afford the condo we had, but now we had 2. God bless the banks lending money to anyone at that point. On the very plus side of that, we learned that someone else can pay our mortgage, and we're basically getting that money for free. And then later we figured out that there are many, many, many tax benefits and huge benefits of owning a rental property. So we quickly learned that trying to pay for materials and the things needed to fix up an investment property on just barely over minimum wage is not easy to do. The thing that happened next couldn't have come at a more perfect time. So all of a sudden I had money to spend to fix up this house, and it would just get me to that next big paycheck that much quicker. So that's what we did. We fixed up the house, we doubled our money, we rolled it into the next one. So we kept bouncing from house to house quite a few times. And that sacrifice from going from a nice house to live in, to going to a crappy house to live in to fix up, to making it nice again, to going to another crappy house to fix up, it became pretty stressful, but we always had our eyes on the prize. Are you still with me, Murph? So after doing this 2 or 3 times, I remember getting a check for the last one, and the check was $41,000. So at that point, it didn't make sense to work at Target anymore, so I just started doing it full time. But we never took the big proceeds from the real estate and put it into our actual living. We always rolled it into the next property. And that kind of gave us the baseline of even how we live today. We always live well below our means. We take the money that we make and we put it into things that will make us an income, not into something that will lose us money. But you do have to treat yourself every once in a while, otherwise there's no reason to make the money in the first place. Kelly saw many of the high-producing realtors making large amounts of money, so she decided to get a real estate license, and she created her own real estate business. So now we really felt like we had the world by the balls, because we were getting paid a commission to buy the property, and then we were saving half of the commission when we sold the property, and I was fixing them up. So we just kept rolling our profits in, rolling our profits in, rolling our profits in, until finally we were able to buy a house. And now that we could get a house, we were playing with the big boys. The profits were much larger, but so was the risk. And we really didn't want to lose all that we had worked for the last couple of years. So we did a few houses and we made some great money, but instead of selling them and pulling out our profits, we kept them as rentals. And it was at this point that we really started building up our rental inventory. At this point it was about 2006 or 2007, and real estate was starting to slow down a little bit. But we had purchased a large house on an acreage that was really a big risk for us. It was a large house to fix up. It was our biggest project for sure. It took us the most money to fix it up, and we had the most money into it. So we lived in this house for about 8 months while we were fixing it up. And we kind of decided after doing about 12 properties that the moving all the time was starting to get kind of old. And we were kind of getting older ourselves. And we decided that we wanted to have kids and kind of settle down a little bit. Murph, are you with me? Sometimes I feel like I'm just talking to myself. So after the 8 months was up, we finished the house, we sold it, and shortly after, the real estate market completely crashed. The bubble had burst, and Colorado was one of the hardest hit states. We got out of the house just in the nick of time, and not only did the real estate market bubble burst, we found out that we couldn't have kids. And it seemed like a real low point in our lives. But around 2007, when all this happened, we realized our next lesson. With every negative, there is a big positive that can be gained from it, and you can just use it as fuel for your fire. So the recession was tough. We thought our great life had come to an end. We thought we were gonna have to get regular jobs. You know, people were losing their jobs left and right. People were losing their houses. Colorado was hit very, very hard. One of the worst states during the recession. And we learned that what goes up must come down. And in this case, it came down hard. In many cases, not just real estate, when things are bad, that's the time to invest. And if you're smart with your money and you've been saving while everyone else has been spending, that's the time to benefit. So from about 2008 to 2012, we were buying rentals. So we were able to adapt. I started doing contracting because that's pretty much what I was doing before, but now I had to be doing work for someone else. And Kelly's always been a mover and a shaker, and even in a bad real estate market, she was able to keep her business moving. We were buying things for pennies on a dollar. And even though we were not making great money, and in some cases losing a little bit of money on rentals, we were able to stick it out. And after lots of years, lots of heartache, and lots of doctors, we were able to have 2 boys. So about 2014, 2015, real estate started creeping back up again. Prices kept going through the roof. And just when you thought it was the peak, they just kept going up. Stuff was flying off the shelves. You could list a house and it would have multiple offers within 24 hours. So at about age 35, we were completely debt-free. We had several rentals that we were cash flowing. We didn't owe any money on the rentals, so all that money was just rolling into a bank account. When you have no bills and you have an income coming in, your net worth starts to grow very quickly. So we rode out the storm. Kelly's business was doing great. My contracting business was doing great. We had liquidated a lot of our real estate in Colorado. We had capital to play with. We had 2 beautiful young boys. And then I fell to my knees, crying like a little baby. I had herniated a disc in my back, and I was on a walker for about a month. Contracting for me was out of the question. I didn't even want to think about picking something up. So I took some time off, and I raised our kids, which at first I thought would just be for a few months. And then a year passed. And then another year passed. And I decided that I kind of liked it. We had rental income coming in. Kelly's business was doing better than it had ever been. In fact, she had started her own. She had several people working for her. And just as a little side income, I got to do what I love to do, which is antiques. I was just buying and selling antiques. So we were trying to be very strategic at this point because we owned a fair amount of property in Colorado, but we knew that our ultimate goal was to retire at 40. And at the rates things were going up, we didn't want to sell too early because we didn't want to miss out on that upside. But we didn't want to sell too late because we didn't want to risk the chance of taking a step back. So with some regret, We sold the majority of our properties in around 2017, but this was a game changer because we were able to pay cash for every rental that we purchased. So we loaded up on rentals in Iowa. We actually purchased our property that we're going to move into, which is actually where I'm headed now. And that kind of brings us up to speed to current date. I take care of our 10 rentals, which keeps me pretty busy just in itself. I buy and sell antiques. I get to see my kids all the time. We have a good rental income coming in. Now we do YouTube. Oh yeah, we also do a couple fix and flips every year. Kelly has her real estate with about 8 employees. And in June of 2020, we're going to retire at 40. So all in all, life is great. I have a wonderful family. I have enough assets and passive income to live a comfortable life. I don't need Ferraris and yachts to make me happy. In fact, for me, it's quite the opposite. So if you're new to the channel, take a moment to subscribe. Click the bell to get notifications of new videos. We like to live life simple on this channel. If you like the content we provide, give us a thumbs up. I'm almost always available to answer questions, and I love hearing from you guys. I'm glad you were able to enjoy my road trip with me. I'm just pulling into the house right now. In the meantime, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple. I'll catch you next week.